for June 21st, 2019.
I have a motion on the floor to
Second.
approve the minutes for June 21st, 2019. The motion has been seconded. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 1 has been approved. Item number 2, changes to the El Paso MPO bylaws, Article 3, attendance, and Article 8, committees.
I move for approval.
I have a motion on the floor made by Mayor Margot to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
The motion has been seconded by Alderman Miller. Discussion by the board?
Are there any questions regarding it was no change from the last presentation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator.
I looked at the proposed changes, and I think with regards to the absences that we have talked in the past, I think this is a vast improvement because it does provide for at least two unexcused absences, and then it goes on, about other types of absences. I would have preferred, this is just me, I would have preferred that we have some kind of clause that just basically provides for people who are absent beyond the allowed absences may show good cause why they were absent. In short, just allowing two seems to me that that's basically saying, well, you might be able to get sick twice, but if you get sick the third time, that's not going to be enough to excuse you from your presence. And I'm just using being sick, but there's all kinds of other reasons why somebody might, there's a death in the family, you got to go to the funeral, that sort of thing. So I would prefer really that we had a language that tracks other types of personnel policies where people, if they have a good cause, reason, a good excuse as to why they're absent, and of course it would be up to the discretion and decision of whether it's the executive board or whoever, that the chairperson, that excuse appears valid, or there's proof that it's that it's a good cause as to why that person didn't show up, not because they were just absent. That makes sense, particularly with this large body. And I know that the concern is making quorums, but it seems to me it's harsh to just simply say, you only can miss so many times, and after that, regardless of what your reasons are, you're out. You can't vote. So that's my view on this. I'm not making a motion to add the language. I just wanted to put that forth for discussion purposes.
Sheriff, can I ask a question?
Mayor Margot?
Senator, we kept it pretty dadgum broad, I thought. You got personal illness, family emergency, jury duty, obligations arising out of elected service. We kept it real broad.
Yeah.
I don't know how anybody could not have an excused absence that wouldn't fit somewhere in those broad categories.
Mm-hmm.
I think the issue is with the number.
Is it the number?
Yeah, because we have two unexcused absences and only two excused per year. And,
There's a total of 4.
yeah, no, I understand that. I do understand that. I'm talking about the excused absences.
And then, well, Senator, and just to, so, we wrestled with this, and we went, there was a lot of discussion back and forth about this. The concern was with granting more, or granting a mechanism where absences can be excused. Well, then it doesn't really matter what the number is, right? Whether we have two, and that's, I think, similar to the policy that we had before. And the concern is that, well, if an absence can be excused for good cause, then we might run into the quorum issues that we had before. And so the goal of what we're hoping to achieve with this, and again, it's by no means perfect and may be subject to further change. We added the additional absence, hearing from folks who have, official duties in addition to personal matters. But the cumulative total of the absences is let's see, with 4, that's a third or of the meetings. And so we felt that, 1/3 of the meetings out of the year is pretty significant. If we went any higher, you know, it's a pretty high threshold. That's not to say that we can't consider a higher number, but we felt that, you know, allowing any member to miss 1/3 of the meetings would.
Yeah, I understand the rationale. I'm okay with it. I think it's an improvement, but
And it's certainly something that I think can be revisited, just like, you know,
Yeah.
this is the second time we're revisiting the policy after, you know, I think there were some members who lost voting privileges that perhaps we didn't intend for it to be that stringent. Again, it was just to encourage participation.
right.
And so you know, if we do run into the same problems, I certainly think it's something that can be revisited. I don't think this
Yeah.
is gonna be, as with all policies, you know,
Right.
they can be improved.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, sir. Just to add to our senator, what happens if I get sick?
Twice, and I missed 2 meetings because I'm sick. But then on October, November, December, I have city training. So what if those 3 dates conflict? I'm already at 5. So I'm gonna lose my privileges because I'm out for training for the city? Because that's what, if we look at this, I lose it.
After five, again, well, right now you would lose it after only 3.
No, of course,
Yeah,
but I'm
so-
just saying, we passed this. I get sick early in the year, and then I have training that conflicts, so then automatically I lose my voting privileges. But yet I'm serving my community, and I need this training
Yeah.
to be better, a better servant for my community.
Right.
And yet you're gonna hinder us because we want to be better, and that's the thing is that there's some training that those dates can't be changed. So that's the conflict that I understand that the senator is saying, is that we can't tell when we're gonna get sick, or our family members, or our training. So those are the issues that we have to address as well. I mean, we need a little bit of leeway, and I understand what he says.
Yeah, I mean, Alderman at large, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Again, the intent of the policy was not to penalize somebody for when they get sick or penalize somebody for when they have official business. It was, again, to encourage participation, because, I mean, you've been here long enough to remember the
Yes.
days when we were here for quorum, and it's a difficult thing to remedy, right? Because what is that correct number? So we're increasing the number by, with a whole other absence. For the most part, we're hoping that those individuals that did lose their voting privileges, but that make a good faith effort to show up to meetings, that this policy would cover them. If that's not the case, you know, we can certainly revisit. But I hear what you're saying. But again, the intent wasn't to penalize; it was more just meant to encourage participation.
Right, and I totally agree, because I've been there at the time where we were lacking quorum.
Yeah.
But some of us do. I don't want to say we take our position seriously, but we do want to be better at what we do, and we need all the training we can get. But if there is a conflict, at least we would want an opportunity to say, hey, well, I was here, and so we won't lose our voting privileges. I understand that some, and not all, I'm just saying, because we have to say it, some of us, you know, used to take advantage of that and say, oh, well, I'll miss, and nothing would happen. And that's what caused us to be very strict with this, which I understand. There is a need
Yeah.
for that. I just want to know that for like my situation, I don't want to be able to lose just in case, because I can say, okay, I'll go to those, I'll miss 3, I'm still okay. But what happens if I do get sick?
Yeah.
You know, or my child goes to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all know that if we have an ill family member, we are going to miss work, period, because we need to be at their side. So those are the issues.
I hear you. And one of the proposals, you know, that was discussed in the EC was to sort of have this perpetual, or this process where the chairman could ultimately make the call and excuse or not excuse an absence. But one, I feel like that puts the chairman in an awkward situation to say, well, no, I don't think this is an excused absence. And then 2, it also opens the door again to have the same policy that we did before. And so I hope, so the goal of this again was to capture those individuals that may have lost voting privileges. And we hope that, because I think that those that did lose voting privileges do make a good faith effort to make regular attendance. I don't think that they're, you know, just not engaged. And that wasn't the intent of the policy, was to penalize that. So we hope this will capture everybody.
Okay.
Better than it was.
Alderman Miller?
I would just wanted to comment that, to the point that we all want to serve the community, but we also have a responsibility to this body. And this is when you miss more than a third of the meetings, is that the appropriate service to this committee? And so that was the question there. There's some very complicated issues here that require continuous engagement. And if you miss a third of the meetings, that was one of the issues that we considered.
Now, Eduardo, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I know it's prohibited where if somebody, you know, loses their voting privileges, their agency that they represent can't swap out that individual. But like, let's say if they do have an illness or something that's going to require more of their time, but perhaps like, let's say they have 1 or 2 absences remaining, but they know that their attendance, you know, might be iffy, you know, considering that whatever circumstance they may be in, the agency can swap out an individual and still retain the voting privileges, you know, for however many absences remain. So let's say if a representative has already 2 unexcused absences, he's only allowed two official absences, but he knows that he has other personal issues that will preclude him from attending in the future, they could swap out and the new representative would still have the 2 remaining.
I'm not sure.
But I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
The board is really by agency, it's not
Right, but if the agency were to take a vote, so let's say in Alderman at Large Rodriguez's point, if the city of Socorro were to take a vote and say, hey, you know, if Alderman at Large Rodriguez were to say, hey, I'm kind of going through some family issues, it's going to take me away for a little while, I have 2 absences remaining, and I don't want us to lose voting privileges, we can swap out at that
A
point.
new designee, is that what you're saying?
A new
Right.
designee doesn't
Absolutely
doesn't
right.
reset, but they
Right.
they retain whatever absences.
Exactly right. Whatever absences are still available, right? But if one member, for example, has already 2 excused, and then at that time, that person is replaced, the new person doesn't come in with 2 new excused absences, right? Okay.
Yeah, all I can do is I hope he doesn't mind, but I'll bring him up, Judge Carl Robinson, Commissioner Robinson, who, as we all know, has an illness that he's dealing with, spending a lot of time in the hospital. Now, if he were on this board and he missed more than 2 excused absences related to illness, that would be all right. But if he missed 3 absences, 4 absences, because it's something that he's having to contend, this language limits that excused absence related to personal
Yes, sir.
illness to only 2.
Yes,
And
sir.
after that, as I read it, you missed more after that, then you lose your voting privileges.
No, correct me if I'm, my understanding is the individual could miss 4 meetings.
4.
4 meetings.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah, well, I mean, right, but,
So even if the 4 are
Right.
excused,
yeah,
it'll count as 2 excused and 2 unexcused.
but the example, well,
I
the
mean, that-
example
that's how I
that I'm
remember.
giving is if somebody has a long-term sort of health situation, could easily go over 4. I mean, I'm sorry, that's, I'm thinking
Well-
about what the real situation is for people out there. But as I said, and I don't want to belabor the point, I think, I take to heart what Commissioner Pettis is saying, that, you know, maybe it's worth trying out and see how it works, and then we can always change it down the line. So I'm okay with that.
Mea culpa, I'm the reason we're doing this. I
Uh-huh.
lost my voting privileges last year,
Mhm.
okay, for mayoral service. And we've debated this, I don't want to say ad nauseum, but we've debated it for a long time. This is better than it was.
Yes, it
And we
is.
can come back if it doesn't work and we have quorum issues. So I would just call the question.
And if I,
Is there a second to calling the question?
Second.
The motion has been seconded. All those in favor of calling the question say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Abstentions. So the question before us is approval of item number 2A and B. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Item 2A and B have been approved.
Mr. Chair, before we move forward,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to recognize two of our new board members, Mr. Tomas Trevino from TxDOT and Mr. Esteban Olivas from the town of Flint. Welcome to the board.
Fantastic. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, continue on here. Item number 3, nomination, election of a chairperson.
I would make a motion to nominate Commissioner Pettis as chairman.
So I have a motion on the.
Second.
I have a nomination on the floor for Commissioner Pettis. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll close nominations. All those in favor of Commissioner Pettis for chairperson, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Abstentions? Congratulations, you are now.
No, I appreciate it.
Chairman.
Well, thank you for your service.
No, thank you. I do want to say, just before I hand over the transition, I do want to say thank you to each and every one of you and for the executive committee for the hard work that you guys put in this year and during this period of transition. I know there's a lot that goes with doing this job, and wish you the best of luck again. I know this is your second time, I believe.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate the mayor's service. The hiring process was not easy, but he was always made himself available. And, I'm very pleased that this year, I think that was certainly a huge accomplishment of being able to hire a new executive director within the timeframe that we had set forth. So, but it was a group effort that, with everyone that was involved.
Fantastic.
I don't want to embarrass the commissioner, but from the county, we're really proud. We talk about people leaving a footprint. He already has a tremendous footprint in the county, anything related to transportation. And what he's done for the county, and I know what he's going to do here is really valuable to us as well. So congratulations, Commissioner.
Thank you, Judge. I very much appreciate that.
All right, and then I'm gonna do the other thing, which is gonna be the nominations for vice chair. At this moment, I'm gonna open up the floor for nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor
I would-
Alderman Miller.
I would like to nominate Mayor Margot for vice chair.
Second.
So I have a nomination on the floor for Mayor Margot as vice chair. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we'll close nominations. All those in favor of Mayor Margot as vice chair of the El Paso MPO, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Abstentions. Motion carries unanimously.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I look forward to a long service.
With that, we transition and,
All right, okay. All right, moving on. Next item is the appointment of the 2019-2020 Executive Committee members. This wasn't easy, but in trying to get a diversity of views on the EC, now with the bylaw changes, the chair and the vice chair are on the executive committee. But I'd like to nominate Alderman Miller, Representative Ortega, Mayor Perea, and Senator Rodriguez. And that should be, is that everyone? Is that seven?
I don't think you nominate, I think you appoint.
A point, okay. Well, is that subject to a vote?
No.
Okay, well, if those members, I hope, are all willing and able to serve? Senator? Okay.
Just for clarification, can you repeat the,
Yes, it's Alderman Miller, Representative Ortega, Mayor Perea, and Senator Rodriguez.
I think you're missing one, because the EC
And
has-
Monica Lombrano. Item number 6, Marisol, were you going to read?
2021 Unified Planning Work Program.
Good morning. I'm Isela.
With the MPO.
I'll be going over the PowerPoint presentation, but please feel free to stop me if you have, if you want me to clarify anything. The UPWP, which is the Unified Planning Work Program, is a 2-year plan. This is the document where we budget the funds that we receive for planning activities. How the UPWP gets started, or the process, is we first receive, sorry, I have a clicker. Thank you. Is that we receive a template from TxDOT. This is a template that they send out to all the to all the MPOs so that the UPWP is standardized. Once we get the template, we do a draft. Once the draft is ready, we take it out for public involvement. This new UPWP was out for public involvement from June 19th to July 19th. We did receive comments from TxDOT and NMDOT, and we have incorporated them into the final draft. The next process is to bring it here to you all for your approval. Once and if you do approve it, we will forward it to TxDOT, who then turns around and forwards it to FHWA for final approval. The UPWP is broken down into 5 tasks, and on the next couple of slides, I'll detail a little bit more on each task. The first one is administration. This one is further broken down into 4 subtasks. The first one, program administration, is actually the subtasks that we budget the most funds in. And the reason for that is that this is where we budget all the purchases that the MPO does, like for computers, equipment, servers, as well as to pay the rent, and also any staff, any time that staff has doing coordination with other agencies is posted to this, as well as all the MPO meetings. The next one, legal counsel, is actually part of the very first one, but we did receive a comment a couple of years back to separate it out into its own line item. And then 1.2 is the time that we spent doing public participation. 1.3 is for maintaining the Title VI and environmental justice plans. And then 1.4 is for professional development. This is where we budget for travel, as well as the time spent during travel and any expenses that have anything to do with training. Task 2 is the collection of data. This is where we have our GIS, our congestion management process, and of course, uploading all that information into our website. And of course, any information we collect for performance measures and for access to essential services. Task 3 is our short-range planning. This is where we have the work that we do with the UPWP and the APR, the TIP, and regional planning. This regional planning is coordination and transportation activities with across states and across the border. And then we also have the enhanced mobility, and this is to oversee the 5310 program, which is for the enhanced mobility of seniors, for seniors and individuals with disabilities. Task 4 is our long-range plan, our long-range transportation planning activities. 4.1 is MTP. For the next UPWP, in those both years, we did budget a bit of funds for a consultant. We will be hiring a consultant to help us out with the MTP, as well as with the next one, which is the travel demand model. And as you can see on FY20 is where the biggest amount of the funds have been budgeted for the consultant. We are currently working on the RFQ, and we're hoping to have that out within the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, the last one is for air quality transportation activities. Task 5 are the projects, our special studies. They're projects that are usually out of the norm. The first one is for the regional mobility strategy. This is a TxDOT project, but the MPO will be helping out in any way that we can. And then 5.2, which is West creating a web-based application, and UTIP is helping us out with this project. This next slide is a comparison of our current UPWP and the new UPWP, and it's broken down by funding source. So for example, in the new UPWP, we'll be receiving $772,000 from federal transit in the Texas side, and about $2.3 million from federal highway in the Texas side. We also get funds from New Mexico Federal Transit and Federal Highway. And then the match is provided to us from Sunland Park, Doña Ana, and Anthony, New Mexico. And we're very thankful to them for helping us out to get this match that allows us to access the New Mexico federal funds.
I have
Yes,
a
sir.
question.
Yes,
So
sir.
all this funding comes from New Mexico and TxDOT, right?
Correct.
From FHWA. So anything that is not in these tasks, we also have to get an approval from New Mexico side, correct?
That's correct. We get approval from both Texas and New Mexico.
Okay.
But as far as the UPWP, it gets approved in Texas, since that's the biggest, this is where we're at in Texas. And it's where we get the most funding from.
But you also have to ask.
Yes, we
New
we do coordinate with NM. They do review our UPWP, and they do give us feedback on it as well.
So my question is, this funding, we already saw what the funding allocations are for everything. But if it's not there, this MPO can't do something just on the Texas side without their approval, because it's not gonna help New Mexico side, right? Or can they?
Well, what we do is that we try to use, the Texas funds when it's, dealing more with the Texas activities, for example, travel. When we deal, for example, with a get-together with all the Texas MPOs, we charge it obviously to the Texas side. When we deal with the get-together with the MPOs in New Mexico, we charge it to the New Mexico side. So, there is even though we're all one region, and for example, the MTP, you do Texas and New Mexico, and there's activities that we do at the regional level, but there are instances where we do, try to separate, for example, travel and other types of expenses.
So, just putting in layman's terms, when we get an approval, and even if we do it on the Texas side, correct? Do New Mexico side needs to still approve it? Or we just don't let them know that we're doing something on this side? That's my question.
It's usually one or the other, not both.
Okay.
So if it's for example, well, no, I guess you're right, because like, for example, the MTP, hiring of the consultants, it did go to both NMDOT and, well, it will be going to both NMDOT and TxDOT.
Okay. Okay.
And then the last line is the carryover. These are the unused funds from prior years. And in this new UPWP, we're budgeting most of our carryover funds, and that's to help out with the travel demand model with the consultants. And that's all I have. If y'all have any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering on the, between 20 and 21, for metropolitan transportation planning, there's about $600,000 decrease.
Right.
Is that because of the allocation from the federal government, or?
No, it's, in fiscal year 20, we are, like Isela said, we're gonna be heavy on the travel demand modeling, so there's a good chunk of funds that will be allocated to hiring a consultant that will specifically help us with the travel demand model. In the following year, we're also budgeting some funding to hire a consultant, also to help us with the metropolitan transportation plan. But that's how we're separating the funds between the two fiscal years.
Is that gonna affect staffing or anything for the MPO? The difference
All
in
of
the-
this affects staffing, in the sense that, we need a balance of work, when we hire a consultant, but we also need to look at our staffing levels and, divide the work, what we do in-house, or get a consultant to help us out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to dig a little deeper on that, can you says here 20% under the MTP, and the modeling activities that UTEP, and the consultant will have certain ratios, 20% to 80% on the MTP, as well as 24 and 76 consultants, 24%. So the 24% will be UTEP under the modeling activities, and MTP 20% will be UTEP?
No,
UTEP
I'm so sorry.
ahead.
On that one, it was also recommended from FHWA on the last UPWP to break down on each of the tasks how much work staff is gonna do for that activity and how much the consultant. But that's only for consultants we hire. UTEP, they're more in-house. They're actually, the staff is in, they come day to day. They work here at the MPO. And so that one, we just consider it as part of staff.
Okay, so staff includes UTEP
UTEP,
and MPO.
correct.
And then the scope of work for these activities, are we gonna get a breakdown of exactly who's gonna cover what?
Well, as we go through the procurement process, which we are right now with the city of El Paso's purchasing, as you know, we need to follow their process for hiring a consultant. The final breakdown, yeah, will definitely come back to you all.
Okay.
But again, it's a balance of the work that we need to hire, outside experts like the travel demand model. That is a highly technical piece of work, and the MPO had a very good experience hiring a consultant in the last travel demand model. So
And the decrease of funds was at the federal or state level?
the decrease, I think we're increasing funds.
Was it?
You've got here on your budget summary that was handed out on UPWP item 4, you have 2020, $1.1 million, and in 2021, you have $500,000.
Right, and that's because in 2020 is when we're gonna be getting the consultant. So that's where we're gonna be spending most of the funds in the 2-year plan. Mr. Chair, just for further clarification, the UPWP is a very important document that the MPO produces, because this is really our work plan. This is what we intend to do in the next 2 years. It's a plan, and of course, it changes, and you've seen Isela here several times modifying and amending the plan as we go forward. But it is very important, because anything that is not in the UPWP, the MPO really cannot do. So, we take it very seriously in terms of including all the activities that we foresee in the next, that we need to develop in the next 2 years. Activities that are so important for us, like specifically the congestion management process, which is obviously very important, and developing the travel demand model, the new metropolitan transportation plan, and one of our favorite documents, a conformity documentation every time we do a plan update. So this is a very important document, and we felt it was very important to bring it up to you and make sure that everybody understands what the document is, and be fully transparent with it.
We've talked about this before, where we haven't really gotten updates on the budget for the organization on a regular basis. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. And in the future, I'd like first the EC to take a look at it, so maybe we can have a more thorough discussion about it, and then bring it before the TPB. When does this have to be approved?
We're asking for approval today.
Today, it's due to touchdown on August 1st.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may, one more thing that is worth mentioning. You'll see at the end of the document, there's several certifications that need to be sent along with the UPWP, certificates of compliances, lobbying certification, and all that. And one of them, which would include the certification of internal ethics and compliant program. So as you know, in the bylaws, it states that all new members need to be compliant with the policy. So just a heads up for some of for the new members that we're going to be following up on that as well.
Okay. And even for that was one thing we discussed when we were looking at the bylaws. Even for the existing members, is everyone up to date on that?
Well, that's we need to go back and scrub
Okay.
and make sure that everybody is on board. But specifically for the new members, you know, we definitely need to comply with the bylaws.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
It's a motion and a second. Those in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes. Next item.
Eduardo Calvo, Executive Director of the El Paso MPO, to participate in A, Paso del Norte Trail Advisory Committee, B, Town of Horizon City Comprehensive Plan Community Advisory Committee.
Alderman. Oh, were there? Go,
Do
let's
we need a
call.
motion first?
Mr. Chair, just for context, per my contract, it stipulates that before I can participate in some of these committees, I mean, it is allowed, but I need approval from the policy board, so that's why we're bringing this. So as you know, these two committees are, you know, very interesting, and I think the MPO, you know, plays an important role in advising both the Paso del Norte Trail, being part of the committee, as well as the town of Horizon City. So again, before participating, I need the approval. That's why we're bringing this.
So moved.
Well, I have an issue because, as you stated right now, the UPWP doesn't have a task to use any planning dollars to be used from the MPO to participate in a local level government. So any committee, if it's not in that, you just said that we shouldn't, but yet you want us to go ahead and
No.
do that.
The UPWP allows that in task 1, I believe it's 1.1, which is coordination, participating in civic activities and all that. So it is clearly allowed per the UPWP.
Because I feel that it might be a conflict of interest, you know, perceived as political alliances. You know, we're here to have and fight for funding for our communities, for our respective communities, right, for our cities. It's like me saying, hey, well, I'm gonna do. If we allow this, then you know, I'm gonna come back, make my own plan, and have it, because it's one of those perceptions that you're gonna align with Horizon, and if Horizon says, hey, well, I need to make these projects, you know, remember, he's a voting member of the MPO who's gonna potentially, when the time comes, is gonna evaluate you. So what does that say? The perception, and I'm not saying it's gonna happen, I'm just saying the perception is gonna be that you're aligning with a municipality. It's gonna probably perceive as favoritism, and in lieu of that, you know, maybe performance for personal gain. You know, that's maybe what this is all about. And it's a perception. I think that it should be separate, and I don't think it should be allowed, just so that the perception won't be there.
If I may, Ed, I would ask you, do you want the MPO to operate in a vacuum? Our sole intent in asking Mr. Calvo to be a part of our planning organization is that he has a wealth of knowledge concerning transportation and how Horizon City will fit into the county. We are asking for assistance in our planning activities. Any sort of, I have no idea of how any sort of political alliance could form for this. We have invited countless other people to assist us in a purely an invitational and informational status. I see no issue with this, and I would certainly lobby for the support of allowing Mr. Calvo to help some of the member organizations in their planning activities. Planning is planning.
Yes.
And I agree, I mean, this is advisory. It's not like you're gonna be making decisions, it's more finding out what's going on and potentially providing advice. It's not like you are, at this stage, taking a position on the project. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's advisory, both of them are?
Correct. And I think the value of, and it's not me personally participating, it's, you know, representing the MPO, and in the case of Horizon, or, you know, on the Paso del Norte Trail, It's really providing the regional, view. And, for example, with the town of Horizon, yeah, you guys are doing your internal master plan, but you can't do it just in a vacuum. You're part of the region, so that's what the MPO brings in. So again, it's not me personally, it's bringing the MPO into this advisory.
Chair. So if Socorro wants to do it, or the town of Anthony, or San Elizario, then it's okay then. That's what I'm trying to say. So,
Yeah.
okay,
I think,
I'm just saying.
Absolutely. But I still need to come, every time that there's a possibility, I need to come to the board and get the approval.
No, and I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. I'm just saying that for me, it's new because since I've been here, we've never seen this. So that's what I'm saying, is that I don't want it to be perceived, because I do intend to do that myself, because we are doing a master plan for the city of Socorro. But I was debating whether or not to ask if you would be able to be in that committee as well. I just thought about it, and I was told that it might be perceived as, later on my projects be favoritism or just this perception that, you're gonna always approve my projects or stuff like that. And that's why I haven't done anything that way. That's why I was saying, and I was asking, because I don't want it to be perceived, and that's what I was trying to say, is perception, because everybody says perception is reality, and if it's gonna be okay, then I might move forward and do the same thing.
I might switch from my residency position to a position on this board. I think this board might encourage Mr. Calvo's participation in as many of these planning activities as possible, because he is regional in scope, and that's where he's going to develop his information for the MPO. Not only is it, I think that would be something that we would encourage Mr. Calvo to do, not restrict him from doing.
Chairman?
No, I agree.
Part of the Paso del Norte Trail, and having Mr. Calvo there has been invaluable, because then they would be sort of in a vacuum. And when he's there, he can talk about the things, the linkages and the connectivity of the trail to some other projects. Otherwise, we'd be a little bit in the blind, so I would surely support his participation.
Mr. Chair, I think this is a great example of alignment and integration into what all the different entities do. So I think your point about utilizing him for your future plans is an excellent idea. He should probably go to everyone's plans, and that way when he comes here, he's got more knowledge and a larger breadth and scope of all the issues. So it's a great example of alignment.
And again, I'm happy to do it as long as this board approves it. I'll participate in as many as we can.
No, I just wanted to ask, because I was told that not to ask you. Because, oh no, you're gonna be corrupt, and no, seriously, that's what I was just saying. Hey, just perception. No, we know what my city has gone through in the past, so no, seriously. So that's why I'm asking. It's like, hey, the perception is there, because I wanted to ask, because I do want to form one, and that's why I'm asking these questions, because if I don't, then I just wanted to be okay to move forward on my future plans.
Mr. Chair, I don't want to give y'all extra work, but just as an aside, y'all might want to just do a quick benchmarking to see what other MPOs do. I bet they do this as well. That way you can put him at ease, and then whoever's asking him that question can show that this is the best practice.
Thank you.
I think that might be a good idea, except we're well along in our process.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it stops it.
Yeah, no.
Continue. All I'm saying is that's just yeah, you need to wait a year. That's gonna take about a year, so you need to just wait.
Let's get that
No, that bit's working. They probably have a contact list, an email. They can just shoot out an email and say, yeses and no's. I bet you a bunch of them are doing it.
And now, Eduardo, I appreciate you putting this on the agenda for full transparency purposes. Is this something that the board would like to see, or is it, can be something in his executive report, rather than an individual agenda item? Are there any thoughts?
I think we just need to probably amend the contract. If the contract stipulates that he's supposed to do this,
Okay.
either amend the contract or you make a motion, we make a motion to have him do an executive report, but I think that still would require the contract to be amended since the contract stipulates.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So when Eduardo approached me about joining both of these advisory committees, we reviewed his contract, and per the terms of the contract, he has to come to the board and obtain your permission. So we can either just continue to come as necessary, or we would have to amend the contract.
I think the only caution, though, would be if he became overwhelmed, so that maybe the staff would also be allowed to participate, because, he's very valuable to a lot of organizations, so there could be a point where it could get overwhelming and take away from the MPO. So that's the only caveat.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd recommend that we amend the contract and then you place it in his executive report so that the board would have visibility to your point.
Yeah. Well, we can give staff direction to that effect, because I don't think the item is written for us to take such action. But if that can be brought up, perhaps at the next meeting, I think that's helpful. Because I was at the last meeting for the Town of Horizon City planning, and I know you weren't there because you were waiting for this agenda item, and actually the topic was transportation. And so, we don't want to, restrict you in any way where, you miss out on meetings like that. So, if you can bring that forward. So we still need, I guess, to approve this agenda item, but staff has direction to bring forth the contract that will allow this participation in other such activities.
No, not a question, I just moved to approve.
Okay.
We already
Oh,
did.
they-
Oh.
We already did.
Okay. Who made the motion?
I did.
Yeah.
Motion and second. Okay, there was a motion and a second to approve item number 7 as written. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Clarity, my understanding, the executive committee has to take any action regarding the contract with the executive director versus the staff.
Yeah, so I mean, with the way the bylaws are, right, they think TPB still has to give that, so that might have to be an agenda item for the next meeting. However, we need to do it. So if we have to just have an item authorizing the EC to do that, let's do that.
We can't do it under the same item.
I don't think so, right?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
We
Can
can't do
we-
it under the
can
same
we,
item, right? It's,
Can we move to allow the executive committee to take up the question of the contract under this item? Is the item broad
under,
enough for us
under
to-
item 7 with the way it's
So
written.
that we could do it today instead of a separate item?
Sure.
Okay.
Then I would move
Okay, well
that-
then, I'll move to reconsider item number 7.
That's an exceptional answer from an attorney.
Yeah.
Right to the point.
Yeah. Why didn't we have that when he was over at the city?
Nice job.
Okay, so I'll move to reconsider item number 7.
Second.
Okay, and the motion is second to reconsider item number 7. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
As part of item number 7, I would move that the TPB direct the executive committee to consider the amendment to the contract to the executive director to allow participation in various groups and present it in his executive report instead of an approval for each item.
Okay.
Does that cover it?
Yeah, and so that item would have to come back to the TPP for final approval first.
For the benefit of us, can you say that again?
Sure, so the motion is that together with item 7, we're instructing, anything that goes to the TPB, to the executive committee, has to first be approved by the TPB. So we'd like to just get that approval now, so the EC can get working on that, so there's not too long of a delay, and it can possibly come forward next meeting if we can get the EC together.
Thank you.
Mhm. And so there's a motion from Alderman Miller, a second from Representative Blanco. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Item number 8.
Just on some context for items number 8 and 9. 8 and 9 deal mostly with amendments to, coming from New Mexico DOT, And they deal with the Borderland Expressway, the Northeast Parkway. So we have Greg McNichol, the chair of the TPAC, to take the presentation on that.
Item number 8, to amend the Destino 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan to A, deprogram New Mexico 404 Super 2 project that would add passing lanes along New Mexico 404 with limits from I-10 to the New Mexico 213 intersection in fiscal year 2023. Sponsors new NMDOTS. B, deprogram New Mexico 404/NM 213 widening from 2 to 4 lanes project with limits on New Mexico 404 from I-10 to New Mexico 213 and limits on New Mexico 213 from New Mexico 404 to the Texas state line in fiscal year 2029, sponsor NMDOT. And C, program New Mexico 213 widening from 2 lanes to 4 lanes project with limits from New Mexico 404 to the Texas state line in fiscal year 2023, sponsor new NMDOT.
Okay, Greg McNichol, Chairman of the Transportation Project Advisory Committee. Like you heard earlier, item 8 and 9 are kind of tied together. I know they've got an image here they can show you in a minute, just to remind everybody, these are all the limits. Yeah, there we go. Okay, the items you're going to see, 8 and 9, are both related to all the work inside the state of New Mexico. There are some funding changes occurring within these items that are in the backup material, but it's basically taking from, like in the case of 404, we're taking it from a Super 2, is being deprogrammed, and you'll see in item 9 that it's going to be a 4-lane. And so these two are both tied together. It's primarily addressing 404 and 213 and some improvements at I-10 where the 404 comes into it. And I know that Mr. Rooney has a comment. At least he made an indication earlier, just to make you all aware of that.
You want to let him go first?
Yeah.
Should I come up? Oh, good, thank you. Greg, don't go up.
I'm not.
Mike Rooney, now, what about the Texas El Paso side? Is that programmed to correspond with what's going on here?
Yes, this is coordinating with the text.
Oh, good, good. So it's gonna, you're telling me it's gonna get done?
No, that's not
Whoa.
This item's about New Mexico.
No, I know, but there's 2 parts of it. So is Texas gonna come to the table and do their side?
Texas is in the process of developing the Texas piece, which is the Northeast Parkway.
Okay, so
They're
we're.
continuing to develop that.
Okay, because there used to be 2 distinguished gentlemen, you used to be one, and Darrell Cole, that after they approved the submitting the Anthony Gap Northeast Parkway as El Paso's project for that $82 million mobility fund, which over time, that money, it grew to about $132 million. Now, for the benefit of El Paso as a whole, that had been shifted off. I think they did Trans Mountain and got some of the other projects. So to me, we've told the community we were going to do that, and I believe, remember those big sheets that Representative Pickett used to have you do? The Northeast Parkway used to be on that as a priority. So, Councilman Morgan, I hope you'll be the fanny kicker and make sure the MPO lives up to the promise they made the people in the Northeast El Paso that would be done. And I want to thank New Mexico for coming to the table and doing their portion. That's on the record, isn't it? Thank you. Oh, and I want to commend somebody from the small community for speaking up in such a vigorous, colorful manner and making sure a small community is listened to. Thank you.
All right. So item number 8, again, is deprogramming elements. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Eddie Walt here, TxDOT. So on the TxDOT side, on the Texas side, we do have a project. It's actually going through its final stages of the environmental process. So we'll be able to wrap that up. Now, on the Texas side, it's kind of a greenfield project. There's nothing there. It's no roadway. So it's a lot more expensive than what New Mexico's doing, but New Mexico's done a great job in programming their portion of it. So we will, the project is a priority project for the department. We are searching for the funding for it, and we are well on our way to get the process part done. Now it's just finding the funding for it. Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion to approve item A.
Second.
There's a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions?
And as you'll hear, she'll read item number 9 in. That's going to address putting this back in with some of the funding addressed.
Item number 9, amend for the 2045 Metropolitan Plan and the Destino 2019-2022 Transportation Improvement Program to A, Program New Mexico 2013 Preliminary Engineering Project to widen from 2 to 4 lanes with limits from the intersection of New Mexico 213 and New Mexico 404 to the Texas state line in federal fiscal year 2020, sponsors new NMDOT. B, Program NM 404 widening from 2 to 4 lanes, project with limits from I-10 to NM 213 in fiscal year 2022, sponsor NMDOT. C, amend NM 404/I-10 bridge replacement project to adjust funding in fiscal year 2021, sponsor NMDOT. And D, reprogram the bicycle connectivity infrastructure improvements, phase 1 project from fiscal year 2019 to fiscal year 2020.
And again, just as I mentioned, this is going to address some of the funding issues related to these two projects, going from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. And I know that item number D is related to the bridge at I-10 and 404, and making some bike lane improvements at that location too.
Sorry, just to clarify, Mr. Chair, items 9A, B, and C deal with the New Mexico project. Item D is a separate one that, if I can suggest that be taken separately.
Is there any questions or comments on items A through C? Okay. Is there a motion to approve item 9, A through C?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve item 9, A through C. Is there-
No, but did you do this?
Okay. Is there any-
What we're going to
Tho-
ask you to do on item number 9D.
Okay, well, we have to take a vote. Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Item D.
Item D, we're going to ask you to delete the item.
Make a motion to approve, for deletion?
D, there's a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? There's some questions, or did you all have?
All right,
Thank you. I want to thank the staff. They've worked to shorten the agenda items, so Marisol doesn't have to read a novel every time she comes here. But essentially, she's going to essentially start reading just the main subject line, and then your backup will contain more detailed information in the interest of time.
Camino Real de Tierra Adentro International Port of Entry in Sunland Park, New Mexico.
Mr. Chair? At this time, I'm going to request to delete this item, and I think we had a scheduling conflict with the contractor, so we're probably looking at August.
Okay.
At this moment, I would move to delete item 10.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to delete item number 10 and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? Item number 11.
Presentation of the NMDOT Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan.
I'm Gabrielle Chavez with the New Mexico Department of Transportation. I'm the Transit Planning and Service Coordination Manager. I'm here to present the South Central RTPO Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Coordination Plan update for the New Mexico Department of Transportation. This plan is a process that's required by FTA to update the Human Services Coordination Plan for the state. This keeps the 5310 funding flowing for the state and provides funding for the 5310 program, which is funding for public transit for seniors and people with disabilities. So currently we're in the process of updating the 2015 plans. The plan update process, oh, I'm sorry. The plan update process will include information from the RTPOs, the MPOs, the NMDOT statewide multimodal plan. We've used the U.S. Census and American Community Survey estimates from 2017. Not too much has changed from 2015 to 2017, but we are updating the maps and the demographics to reflect those small changes. The schedule for the plan update is we've been updating since February, or we started the process in February 2019. We began meetings with the RTPOs and the MPOs in June. We'll be ending in July. I think we might have to come to do the South Central RTPO meeting later on in August because they didn't meet over the summer. So, and we'll have a draft coordination plan available by August 1st of this year, and then we will hold it for public comment until September 1st, 2019. And then I'd be happy to come back and present the final plan to all of you so that you know what the results were, and we'll be taking in comments and any kind of suggestions or coordination with all of you. So the plan update structure is that there'll be there'll be 4 chapters or 4 components in the plan. There'll be an introduction with the summary of federal policies, requirements, and funding, an assessment of current services, a needs assessment that reviews the census data, discussions with transit and human service providers, public outreach, and needs compared to existing services to determine unmet needs. Strategies to address gaps in services, and then a draft and final plan update. We'll be assessing current services and looking at an inventory of existing services, existing and future conditions, and public funding for transit, including costs of existing services, funding sources, and future funding potential. The needs assessment will be looking at where people live, population density, the transit dependent index. We'll also be looking at major destinations where people are wanting to go, shopping, medical appointments, human service agencies, and then other needs such as vehicles with wheelchair capacity, vehicle type, and service type. Strategies to address unmet needs. We'll be looking at new services to meet the existing and future needs, as well as maintaining existing services. We will do the coordination of human service and transit services. This will include a variety of opportunities to combine services with the training, safety programs, and other transit agencies in the area, and then consolidate services, which is the ultimate goal in all of this. Existing strategies that came from the 2015 plan were to prioritize transit service to areas with higher concentrations of special needs populations, coordinate efforts with the West Texas El Paso Regional Coordinated Transportation Planning Coalition to identify transit needs and implement services that would involve the El Paso MPO, work with South Central RTD to coordinate and share vehicles currently allocated and confined to only specific services and programs. And then there's a few others that I think we can pass over. We're also looking at increased service delivery in smaller rural areas such as Santa Teresa, Sunland Park, Chaparral, and Socorro, New Mexico. Work with county health and human service departments to monitor patient needs served and unserved by current transportation providers. Share resources such as information and riders, dispatch and maintenance facilities and operations and administration processes. Introduce intra and interstate services between the larger communities in the planning area between Las Cruces and El Paso. Are there any comments or questions?
Any questions or comments?
Does everyone know what the plan is, or has anyone read it before? So the 2015 plans are available for review on our website. You can also contact me if you have any questions. As soon as the draft plan is posted on our website, I will email a PDF version to the MPO for distribution, and then you guys can contact me with any questions or comments or any coordination efforts that you would like to make with us. And that's it. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you. Okay, item number 12.
The
Congestion management process.
The congestion management process update.
Updating the congestion management process. It's one of the main activities that the MPO has to do. And we provided you earlier a schedule, and we're on schedule to complete this by November. So Sonia Perez is leading the effort, and she'll be presenting.
Good morning, Sonia Perez, El Paso MPO. This item, as Eduardo mentioned, is a progress report. It's about 6, 7 slides on the congestion management process update. As a reminder of why we're doing this update, this is an outline of the CMP requirements. The CMP is federally mandated requirement in any urbanized area with population over 200,000, known as a transportation management area. It provides up-to-date information on congestion levels and identifies alternative strategies for congestion management that are regionally accepted. The CMP also requires a process to demonstrate that SOB capacity projects in unattainment areas are justified and comply with the CMP by integrating the congestion management strategies. And the CMP shall be developed, established, and implemented as part of the MTP process. However, unlike the MTP, the CMP doesn't have a specific update schedule or deadline that we have to meet. That is why you don't see a CMP document more frequently presented to you, like the MTP. To show you a history of the CMP, this slide presents the CMP has been a requirement since 1991. It was before called Congestion Management System. And it started as part of the IST federal law that proposed major changes to transportation planning and policy. In 2008, the CMS was updated and renamed to Congestion Management Process as part of Safety Loop. Our previous CMP update was done in 2013, and we are currently updating our CMP. For this update, an ad hoc committee was formed of 7 members from the TPAC, and we have been meeting on a monthly basis. At the meetings, we have completed a review of the goals, the objectives, performance measures, and the CMP network. We're currently on element number 5. We have gathered data sources, identified data gaps, and we are doing an initial analysis of the congestion problems. In this diagram, it's hard to see, but on your left side, you have the CMP elements as outlined in the CMP guidebook. And on your right side, you have the documents, the MTP documents, and you can see how these are linked to each of the elements of the CMP, and how this is a circular process, that if anything changes on the MTP, like goals, objectives, the CMP will be also, will also change. If we scroll down to Appendix B, please. In your handouts, you have Appendix B, which shows the proposed draft objectives, goals, objectives, and performance measures. 3 out of the 4 objectives promote multimodal transportation development for the region. So these are the recommended by the group. And you also have the CMP network in your handouts. Go down to the map, please. This is the CMP network that includes all roadways that will be analyzed for congestion and for the system monitoring. During the meetings, the group identified missing roadways for this update, and some were removed as well. We go back to the schedule. As Eduardo mentioned, this is the timeline that we have developed for this update. We're currently on schedule. Our next ad hoc committee meeting will be on August 12th. And we are planning to bring the final draft for approval on October to allow for 30-day public involvement period, and to have final action on November 15. This completes my presentation. If you have any questions.
Public comment, please. Sure, Mr. Rooney.
What is UZA stand for?
Urbanized zone, area zone.
We'll have public comment. Go ahead, Mr. Rooney.
Thank you, Mike Rooney. This is just a matter of optics, but shouldn't the streetcars be on this thing? Shouldn't the Paso del Norte Trail be on this thing? You know, when these people, I was paying attention when those folks from the feds came down and were sitting over here and talking about our problems with congestion. And from what I've observed of the MPO, you bust your butt to meet federal requirements and stuff. So it seems like we ought to be able to easily sell some of the initiatives that we do. I know Jade knows I'm not a fan of the streetcars. I beat him up over the years. But should, you know, just a matter of optics, shouldn't we put some things on here so when these Fed people come down, hey, El Paso's doing a lot of things trying to improve itself. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Rooney. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, just one more, couple of things. If, the two most important takeaways, like Sonia mentioned, is, first of all, this is, even though it doesn't have a clock, but it is a process that needs to be updated on a regular basis. And so at the last certification review, my understanding was that it was called, and so that's one of the reasons why MPO staff jumped at it to restart the process very quickly. So it is mandated, so we've got to take it, you know, obviously very seriously. The second part is that, as Sonia stated, if we do not have an operational CMP in place, then any added capacity project has the risk of not being approved by the feds. In other words, added capacity projects for single occupancy vehicles, and correct me if I'm misstating this, needs to come or has to be analyzed through a CMP, a congestion management process. So if we don't have it, then we're running the risk. So that's why it is so important to always have the CMP up to date and make sure that the feds are happy and our projects will move forward.
Very good. Any questions? Next time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of transportation system.
Mr. Chair, as they come forward, this is a presentation that UTEP is going to present. It's part of the contract that UTEP has had with the MPO to do some research. And we're very close to completing this activity, as Mr. Carlos Chang, Dr. Chang, will be presenting.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to give you a summary and a grade on this project. My name is Carlos Chan. I am an associate professor at the Department of Civil Engineering at UTEP. And this is one of the initiatives that we are working in cooperation with El Paso MPO in order to have better informed decisions and better tools. From what I hear, everybody in this room agrees that we want the betterness for the people in the region, right? Everybody wants to be the best and have the good quality of life. Now, to do that, we need good transportation networks. And to have good transportation networks, we need funding. Now, I believe this is common sense, and everybody agrees on that. What this project is about is how we can get it done, how we can identify the needs of the people, how we can get the funding, how we can compete with probably larger regions like Dallas, Houston, and still get the money to get it done. So this project is about how do we get the tools, how we get transportation modes, in particular with active transportation systems. The father of this project was a previous effort, like 2 years ago, when we were looking on general performance measures for MAP 21. There is a big change nationwide about legislations. Now we look for performance-based. If we don't have a plan that is based on performance metrics, it will be very difficult to get money. So what we did in that particular project before was look at what's the legislation, what are the opportunities for funding, because any project has to meet certain criteria. Then we look at the different blocks that are of interest in that in the area, like sustainability, materials, transportation, economy, and came out what we call the community planning blocks, because there is certain scope. What's the impact in the community? What's the impact in the neighborhood? What's the impact nationwide? And we find out what we call a set of performance measures that can be used depending on the project and how we can analyze the data and finally report. Because it's very important to communicate the results. It's very important not just to have a solid methodology, but something that is applicable. In my life, I have also been a practitioner. So I understand that the theory is not enough. We have to put it in place, communicate very well, be able to show what are the results. So as a consequence of that project, we were asked to focus on active transportation systems. So we came out first with a big set of performance measures that can be applied in many of the projects that we have as initiatives. And then we said, okay, why don't we focus on active transportation systems? Because that's one that doesn't have much development. We need to look more at that. And that's the project that we started 2017, September, and we're wrapping up right now in August 2019. And you can see the 5 tasks. The first task was to assess spatial, environmental, social, demographic factors. So we collect data on that one along ATS systems. Then we develop the methodology itself. And after that, we develop the planning methodology and apply to a case study. So we applied to a case study in El Paso region to make sure that it's feasible, to make sure that this is possible and can be doable with the resources that we have. We have some technical papers in progress, presentations. We have received good comments because also we understand and think that it's very important to have El Paso MPO becoming kind of leadership in this area. I've been giving presentations in other states, and this is kind of a common situation. And communities that are small are difficult to get funding. Projects that are needed might not go through because there are not enough resources or ways to make presentations. So it's very important that we show our case and we demonstrate that it's possible. We are working in the final report. In the tech memos that we have, we already explained the methodology, and one of the things is to know why El Paso MPO or the region might be looking ATS. Well, the mission and the goal of ATS are very well aligned. We're looking for safe, efficient, and very effective transportation systems in an area for the good of the people. And active transportation systems can provide that, can improve not only the network, can improve the options for everybody in order to move from one place to another. There are already some current efforts in progress that we are using as a case study, as samples. But kind of the thing is when we are going to ask for the funding, how we're going to justify that, how they fit in our strategic plan, how can we make it happen. And the key is the connectivity, how we connect the needs to the infrastructure condition and the future projects with the funding. So kind of the goal of the whole thing, as I said, is to identify ATS projects that have that potential, that can benefit the people, that can get the funding sources, and can tie everything together and be part of the transportation improvement program. What we found so far is that by itself, byways or sidewalks, they are too small maybe to make it through. They have to be part of a bigger project and be considered in those projects for everybody. This is just kind of a layout of the tasks that we have done through. So our first task that is completed long time ago, and we were having reports, that was in March 2018, written reports, internal, technical, for discussion. We collect all the documents that are around related to the topic from El Paso MPO, federal guidance, state that are already available, and peer practices from other states or cities. Including even by national byways. Because of our location, it's also important, I think, to consider how we can move from one place to another, from Juarez to El Paso, and be considered those in the decision some way. And also identify funding sources for active transportation that are right now here. So task 1 was completed, task 2 was already completed, task 2. That was an overview. We came up with a 6-step process that I will go over quickly in a moment. But basically, the center of this methodology is what we call need indicators. So we came what we call need indicators. What are the indicators that could tell us there is a need? And in those indicators, we have to include demographics, where's the people living, where people want to go, destinations. I just heard another presentation mentioning very similar approach, because this is really what we need to look first, like what are the needs of the people, and then what are the gaps. We came up with 4 that we call PET A, PET B, by A, by B, kind of simplify performance measures to identify gaps and justify. There are many, many indicators. We could go deeper, but as I mentioned, we try to keep it simple, at least at the beginning, and then we can go deeper if needed. Now, the method is on the left-hand side. You should have it in your handouts. It's a little bit hard to read from me from there. I need glasses, I just found out. But I have to renew my driver's license soon, so I'm worried. Anyway, what are the blocks? See the blocks. The first block is review the planning context and objectives. Any project has to be in a context. What's the context? Decisions may change depending on the context. So what we want to achieve, what our objectives, has to be aligned with MPO, and have to see what we're going to do. And also what we call is the study area, the land use, regional guidance, the state and local laws. So any project to go further has to be within the regulations. Otherwise, we will not get funding. We have to play with the rules, or we have to try to modify the rules. So anyway, we need to know what's there and what are the opportunities. So the first step is just review the planning context and the objectives. The second one is see what are the community needs. So we were looking at different cities, we were talking here and came out with that. Us as community needs, so we look at population density, community to work mode share, current transportation disadvantages, and community health. So we look at that, and we are describing the indicators in the report, how we're going to do it. And number 3 is where people want to go. So once we know what are the needs, where people want to go, they want to go to school, they want to go to a hospital, to work. We have like places of employment, educational institutions, hospitals and cities, parks and recreational centers, ports of entry, transit maps. So that's block 2 and 3. So what are the needs, what people want to do? And then we combine those two and see, all right, what do we have in our infrastructure facilities? What do we have there? Can they meet really what the people wants to go? Can they meet their needs? Or probably we have gaps. So that's what we call infrastructure facilities that we are looking for in number 4, the roadway classification, pedestrian and sidewalk, and byways facilities. So we look sidewalks, crosswalks. There was also another database, Strava, that we look at, and also for the bikes. It's a lot of information that has to be condensed, and the best way to condense is in a map. So in order to have reports and have clear information, easy to understand, I kind of want more visual people. If you look at the data, it's a big numbers, hard to find. So why don't we summarize in a map? So each of those items have what we call thematic map. So one of one is the study area. So each map will have the summary of that analysis. I'm going to show you some samples. And then once we have that information that can be useful not only for this project, but also for any other one in the region, we can do a gap analysis based on our performance measures. And finally, prepare what we call scorecards. So the products are maps, as you can see on the right-hand side, for the study area 1-1, and we are kind of looking for the same kind of format. So these are just examples. I know just from looking at that map, might be hard to see, but we're having colors, and we're explaining what is the map, and there is a lot of work behind. So it's just a team working, having the map in GIS and then in formats that can even probably in the future seen even by a cell phone or access from there. So this commune to work mode share, those are examples. So each of the items will have a map. The maps are based on municipalities, because I think that's the easy way probably to get and see combination of funding. Places of employment, that's number 3, where people want to go. So we have places of employment or educational institutions. That's another map. And then 4, infrastructure facilities. So as you can see, each of the steps will come out finally with a map that will be able to condense that information. So these are just examples: sidewalks, byways, and crash locations. Safety is another big concern. We are doing other projects on safety. I think that the life of people is the most important thing, and unfortunately many times pedestrians and bikers are not well protected. So we have to see what are the crash locations that have problems and try to improve it. That's another way to justify projects. So these are examples of thematic maps. And then the gap analysis, we have the pedestrian measures of effectiveness. These are examples that we're going to apply to case studies where we are applying. We pick up 2 missing sidewalks and missing crosswalks, and we pick up certain criteria, and that criteria, of course, can be flexible. I will invite Dr. Barrova to tell you a little bit more about this.
Raqueta Pavarova with UTEP. So, as Dr. Cheng mentioned, we also looked into the potential gaps in pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure. So, our goal was to assess these from the regional level. So, for pedestrian infrastructure, we focused on the presence of sidewalks and crosswalks. And of course, this is a simplified approach because there are so many other factors. We could have looked into pedestrian scale lighting, ADA compliance, sidewalk width and condition, presence of a buffer next to the sidewalk, and so on. But in our analysis, we made an assumption that a gap would be identified along arterial and collector roadways where there is no sidewalk or no crosswalk. Because as we know, arterials and collectors are roadways that carry thousands of motorized vehicles at speeds of 35, 40, 50 miles per hour. And these are the situations where it's crucial to minimize the risk of a collision between a motorized vehicle and a pedestrian. Because as statistics show, these crashes are often fatal or result in serious injuries for the person who's walking. So the purpose of this methodology was to provide a high-level picture of what the gaps could be and use it as an output for planners and engineers who would further then examine the specific location factors such as land use, right-of-way, available, and so on, to determine what would be the appropriate solution in that specific context. So all the information that is in the thematic maps and information from the gap analysis is summarized in form of scorecards. We understand that active transportation plays an important role in a modern multimodal transportation system. For example, for people who want to walk, bike, or take the bus on their way to work, for households that do not own any vehicles, for low-income households, or for people who just want to be active in their leisure time. So for these people, active transportation can connect them to places of employment, schools, hospitals and clinics, historic and cultural places, ports of entry, as well as provide the first and last mile connection for transit. And all these things are captured in these scorecards. On the bottom of the scorecard, there will be results from the gap analysis. For example, for bicycle infrastructure, we gathered information about proposed and existing bikeways from the city of El Paso, from the Paso del Norte Health Foundation, also from San Elizario about their historic circuit trail. And here in the scorecard, we will report the miles that are completed and also the miles that are planned in those bikeway networks. Here I would like to thank to all local agencies that provided their asset inventories for sidewalks, crosswalks, and bikeways back in spring 2018 when we were starting this analysis. And as it turned out, especially smaller municipalities, they often do not have the resources to maintain up-to-date GIS inventories. So we will keep this in mind when we're writing our recommendations for applications of this methodology in the future planning processes. So this methodology was applied in a case study focusing on 3 segments of the active transportation network as it was adopted by this board back in summer 2016. So in the case study, we included 3 segments. One of them was Avenida de Estrellas, that is basically downtown El Paso, UTEP, and a portion of Sunland Park. Then we looked into Mission Trail, which basically covers City of El Paso, Socorro, and San Elizario, and as well as Solstice Trek, which is basically Clint and then County of El Paso. That way, we were able to capture multiple municipalities, urban and rural areas, and also areas of historic significance.
Yeah, the idea was to pick up 3 cases that can be a little bit different because the 3 are important, and to see how the methodology can be flexible enough. We assessed the gaps and measure of effectiveness and the case study, and we did also perform on-site verifications to make sure that the data that we receive or maybe the information was kind of accurate. Those are long segments, so we took samples, we took photographs that will be documented in the final report, and we're focusing on areas within 1 mile from the sediment. And as I said, the products for the case study, the methodology are the supporting maps, what we call thematic maps, and also scorecards. The data can be used not only for ATS, but for many other things. So I will highlight the contributions. The major purpose is identifying the needs for pedestrians and bicycle infrastructure. What are the areas that have those needs? But to do that, it's not just the sense of feeling. Like, we have to look at demographics, we have to look at destinations, crash history, so all those factors are being considered, whether the infrastructure condition and any other data, but based on data that can be feasible obtained. So we use census data and other information that's kind of more routine. Otherwise, it will be unfeasible to have a model that asks for a lot of information and never be done. We incorporate what we call community need indicators that we think that's the way we can use for measuring and metrics and have the infrastructure gaps. And then, as I mentioned, the products are scorecards and thematic maps that can condense the whole thing. We believe that the measure of effectiveness will not be only useful to allow to have projects or planning, but also to track progress in the future. So even the municipalities can track progress, what's going on, where we are, and see what's happening of any existing projects. We are thinking that with this, El Paso MPO will be better prepared for do strategic planning, so identify potential areas for future projects, in particular, as I said at the beginning, funding sources. So once you identify the source of funding, once you know what are the factors, when you can tie with, okay, where do I get the money from? Because not everybody doesn't have all the money, right? Money is always good for those things. I think everybody will agree on that too. Anyway, what's next? Well, you may be thinking, all right, what project might be on top? Right, we identify the needs, but what project is the best? Well, that depends on many factors. You may want, all right, the project that is next to my house, that's the best, right? Anyway, because that will take me to my house, the sidewalk or the bike lane, because that's the one I use. But there are many factors, so the next step is really how we compare the projects. We identify 3 areas. They have different particular situation, historical, the other business. What's more important? So there are different methods that, and this is kind of the general sequence. Define the objectives, what are the factor areas, what are the indicators of measurements. Then we have to come up with a weight. I know this is a difficult part, because if I ask what's the weight to everybody, you may give me probably different weights or different priorities, or there might be groups. But there are methods that I will call, unfortunately, many times it's based on demographics or the population only. And that's the reason why large communities will get most of the funding. But there are what we call fair methods. That even small communities can get access. So there is a methodology that can be applied in the future in case you want to continue later for more analysis. That has to be scaled. We need to come up with a score, and then prioritization and optimization. That's kind of what we have to be done after the project, either internally if it's wanted by the Paso MPO or with our support or by a consultant. I want to thank you, all the feedback that we got through this project, all the technical aspects from the whole staff, Dr. Salvador Gonzalez, Eduardo, Kane, Roger, Sonia, and Claudia, because they were providing feedback. We were having technical meetings, progress meetings, and we were having milestones, because we have technical reports internally from memos that are milestones. We don't want just to be this like a conceptual. We want it in practice. So we want to be safe when we walk. We want to be safe when we bike. And of course, we have good projects. And I think everybody's proud to live in El Paso region. And we are proud also that these concepts are very well received around the U.S. And we are showing the good things that we are doing in El Paso MPO. So thank you very much. I don't know if there are any questions. I'll be willing to take it. And this is available. Thank you. Yes, we hope to get it done, so.
Good answer. Mike Rooney, before Michael Medina retired, and this was probably November, October last year, there was an initiative, there were a bunch of UTEP students over there, and it was a data collection process that he wanted to implement so decisions could be made on better data. Is this an update of that? Oh, this is great. Thank you. Is it separate? It's a portion of what those students were working on?
Yeah, let me.
No, that's good. You answered it. Thank you. I'm glad to see you put the UTEP students to work. Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to get the students to work. I know that by experience, but it's hard to have somebody to get work, to get it done, right? Yeah, this is part of the initiatives that students, undergrads, I cannot do everything myself. I don't have all the time, all the knowledge needed of the Barroba. So we have a team of students collecting data on the field, looking around, walking around like crazy guys, walking on the roads. We also have doing wet base. That's part of the agreement that we have. Some of them are volunteers, or others are being paid. So it depends. That's the advantage of the university. We don't want to compete with the consultants. We can also partner. So it's a team effort. We are open, but we are here. So whatever you need to support, we are here. Thank you.
Chairman, I have a question. Is this intended to complement, supplement, or totally replace the existing planning process? Because I know we have performance measures, objectives, and ways of trying to measure where we're headed.
What UTEP is doing is will be incorporated into the planning process. Now, you heard, I mean, although this specifically talks about active transportation, it's focusing more on pedestrian and bike facilities, but it'll be part of the revamped evaluation and prioritization process that the MPO needs to implement as we incorporate it into our planning process for the new plan and selection process in general.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the purpose and that's the approach. Thank you very much.
The presentation on TechStop Project Tracker.
Adjustments for a minute. Hello, my name is Michael Chamberlain. I'm the Director of Data Management and Transportation Planning and Programming Division in Austin. Today I'm going to give you a presentation about Project Tracker. How many people have heard of Project Tracker before? Mr. Rooney? No, he's not watching. He'll be here in a minute. Okay, so quite a few. So we did a survey a couple years ago, and we got pretty much the same results, where not a lot of people knew about Project Tracker. So I'm here to help mediate that or remedy that. So first thing, when you want to find Project Tracker, you can get to it a couple of ways. My suggestion is doing a Google search, type for Project Tracker. Oh man, my eyes are worse than I thought they were. And first thing is not our project tracker, so I probably typed in the wrong. Oh, there it is. TechStop Project Tracker. Okay, so that's one way to find it. The other way to find it is if you go out to the TechStop website, which is the main website. On the front page, there's a Looking for These section, and there's a Project Tracker link. Okay, so you can go to Google and find it. You can go to the TechStop main page and find it. Once you get here, you click on the link, and now you're in Project Tracker. Okay. So first things first, you'll see a large map. This has all the projects in the state. It's all 16,000 plus projects that we're tracking. One of the big complaints during the survey was it opened up the map and we didn't see anything. And they were like, where are our projects? So we put them all on the screen. We know that that's a lot to look for, so we put a nice search item over here. So all you have to do is type in a couple characters, in this case EL, and we get a bunch of results. We're going to see El Paso MPO, El Paso District. We'll choose El Paso District first. It's going to zoom to the El Paso District, show the projects only in the El Paso District, and then you get a nice summary by project phase. The 4 phases are construction underway or beginning soon, within 4 years, 5 to 10 years, or corridor studies, 10 years out. This gives you the number of projects and the estimated construction cost for each phase. Okay, so you can total those up. You can do it by district, you can do it by city, You can do it by county. You can do it by state senate or state house district. All you have to do is type in a number, right? State house district. It'll zoom to all the projects within that district, again, and you get the report, okay? So you don't have to go to TxDOT and ask 4 or 5 different people. You don't have to go to 4 or 5 different agencies. You can simply just do the search, and it's there, okay? For specific information about a project, you can click on it. You'll get an info window that shows construction information, contact information. So if it's been let, then you'll get the vendor that's doing the work. If it has not been let, you'll get the TxDOT contact, okay? A lot of people said, that's great, but what can I do with it? Can I download it and put my own information in my own group? You can do that. You can export the data. You can do a PDF. It will export only what's on the screen. You can do an Excel spreadsheet if you're a spreadsheet wizard. If you have GIS staff, then you can get a shapefile. You can incorporate in your own maps, your own analysis, okay? So far, I've showed you what's called pretty much the generic version. We also have an advanced version. If you switch to the advanced version, you can start turning things off. You can turn off corridor studies. You can turn off 5 to 10 years. You can turn off within 4 years, and you can see only what's currently underway. All right? If ever you get lost, you can always hit reset. It takes you back to the beginning. Okay? Super simple. So this is for highway projects only. If it's a non-highway project, an aviation project, something like that, you can go up to the aviation links. This jumps you out to the Unified Transportation Program, maritime, transit, major projects. Okay? Now, I've showed you where to get to it. I've quickly showed you how to use it. I need to tell you how often it's updated. Okay? So the line work that you see on the map, so these colored lines that represent different projects, that's updated once a week. So if a new project comes online, right, TxDOT needs a little bit of time to put it in the system, then you'll see the line on the map. The information, when you click on a project, let's see if we can get the info box to come up. There we go. This information is updated every night. So that's the best that we can currently do at TxDOT is within 24 hours. There are 6 different subsystems. It's all wrapped up into one report every night, and it's updated. So if you have a project that's changed, information about that project, give it a couple days at the very least, right, and you'll see it on the screen. New locations, proposed locations are also on this map. So 404 is out there. So it's in a proposed location. It's a proposed alignment. It's still not funded, so it's in a different category, but it is there. Okay? That's what Project Tracker is. That's where you find it. Now I'm going to open it up for comments or questions from Mr. Rooney.
You did a good job, and thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, you also include studies, right?
Correct. Corridor studies are there. Corridor studies are 10 years out. That's if we're determining what the project needs to be or if there even needs to be a project. Those are also on the map.
My question is, you just said, just so you can elaborate more on it, proposed projects will be there.
Correct.
That are not funded. So you will see all
Correct.
this.
Yeah, let's take a look at one. So we talked about 404 earlier. We'll zoom in on El Paso. And you can see this, and let me switch to advanced view, turn some things off. Okay, so that's the proposed 404 line work. Now that was passed to us from Planning Department, and we sketched it in. It is not the final alignment by any stretch. It's just a line on a map. So that's actually in the system. We don't have the New Mexico side. We think we kind of need it, right? So Texarkana, El Paso, they have MPOs that go into other states. That's some coordination, some improvements that we can make down the line.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Okay. Any other questions? Everybody knows how to get to it from now. Google search TxDOT Project Tracker. Go to the TxDOT main page. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Item number 15, Executive Director Report. A, Select Conformity, and B, Fiscal Year 2020 Unified Transportation Program.
So, for item A, Sunland Park conformity, actually, Mayor Perea would be great for him to be here, but the good news is that we received the approval on the conformity for Sunland Park. That's excellent news, especially for those of us that love conformity determinations and the process, including Mayor Margo. I know it's your favorite topic. So that's good news. We're clear on that.
We have the letter there and your backup in case you want to read it or frame it.
Till when? I mean,
Good point.
what would trigger?
Okay,
what would
so
trigger-
in this particular case, what triggered the conformity determination was that the city of Sunland Park was designated as non-attainment for ozone. And that was in August of 2018. So Federal Highway and EPA gave us, the region, 1 year to show conformity, to the new, well, do the test for conformity. In this case, it was a build, no build test. So that year ended, or would end, August 3rd. So we needed to do it before that year, and we did. Now, very clearly in the letter, it states that this conformity determination, because it's specific only for the city of Sunland Park, does not trigger, does not start a new clock. So we're still under the same 4-year clock that started in November of last year. So that's a good news. Then the second topic that I wanted to bring to you is the UTP. If you can pull up that presentation, Gabby. There we go. So as you all know, right now, TxDOT is going through the public comment process for the fiscal year 20 Unified Transportation Program, which is the TxDOT 10-year plan. This presentation is what they used at the public meeting back in July 11th. So I'm not going to go very into a lot of detail, but I'll just go through this presentation. So that's the calendar. The public comment period ends on the 12th of August, and then the plan is for the commission to approve this UTP at their August meeting on the 29th of August. The UTP, again, it's a 10-year plan. It includes the projects that TxDOT is developing for the next 10 years, and it's required by law for the commission to adopt it every year. So where does it fit within the family of documents? It's somewhere in the middle. So you've got the 2-year letting schedule, then we have the STIP, our 4-year TIP STIP, then the UTV, which is 10 years, and then, of course, the long-range plans that the MPO develops, which is about 20-year time frame, and then the state transportation plan, which is 24, 25 years out in the future. There's the process that the TxDOT does. There's a lot of data collection. All the districts provide information and projects. Then the TPMP division of TxDOT does an evaluation process, which is fairly new, and I don't know if anybody from TxDOT wants to elaborate a little bit on that. But then they come up with a list of recommendations. As you all heard, TxDOT also needs to follow the new regs that are based on performance targets. So they do look at projects that meet all the different goals, safety, congestion relief, and so on. So now to the good part, the funding. The UTP separates funding into 12 major categories, including Cat 1, which is maintenance, and then the ones that are more important to us are Categories 2, which is quarter projects that fall into big quarters. Category 5, which is CMAC. Category 7, which is STP. 5 and 7 are the ones that are controlled by the MPO. And then very importantly, Category 12, which is strategic priority. This is where the commission has a pot, and projects are selected at the state level by the commission. So for this year, for the 2020 UTP, for the whole 10 years, we're talking about just below $77 billion worth of funding. The $77 billion, again, distributed into the different categories. Some of the categories are based on formula to be distributed to the different regions or to the different districts, but we're talking a good chunk of cash. Again, not going to get into the detail, but there is an evaluation and scoring process that they use to score different projects. And where to find the information, just like Michael just showed you the project tracker, you can find a lot of that information here. The UTP focuses on these categories 2, 4, and 12. This is really where the big projects the funding for big projects come from. You can see the amounts that were authorized previously, the additional amounts for this UTP, and then finally the balance that still needs to be programmed. Some of the projects on Cat 2 throughout the state, you see them there. Same for Category 4, which is connectivity projects at the regional level and then at the urban level. And Category 12, again, this is a very important category because, again, that's really where the big money comes from. Category 10, also relevant to us with CBI. There's a new allocation of $36 million that's going to be distributed to the 3 border districts. There's a project that proposes to use the funding that would be allocated here for the El Paso district that we can talk about later. Then again, some of the important initiatives, the Permian Basin, obviously oil and gas is very important, and the state is very responsive to addressing the needs of the industry. It's good for all of us. One of the important things or topics at the state level is really the removal of toll projects from the UTP. As you all know, there's been a recent discussion throughout the state about the communities being suffering from toll fatigue. So the commission decided to remove the tolling elements for several of these projects. The bad news is that for these projects to move forward, now they're going to be what was before considered or be funded through tolls or toll mechanisms. Now those projects are going to be competing with regular funding sources, and clearly we're going to be competing excuse me, with those. And then comments. The comment period is still open. We all can submit comments until, I believe, August the 12th. And so that's the end of the presentation that TxDOT gave. So now some of the analysis. This is a very simplified slide that we prepared showing the changes, to put it a little bit in context, the changes between fiscal year 19, which is the current one, and the proposed fiscal year 20. The total amount went from 75 billion to over 76 billion, so it's a lot of money, but it's a 2% change from one year to another. Specific to the El Paso region, in fiscal year 19 UTP, we had $625 million identified for the district, 700 million identified for the MPO through categories 5 and 7 and others, and you see the changes there from one year to another. What is significant again is that the overall we're getting a little more money. Understanding that this is still a draft, but we go from 1.3 to 1.5 billion through the 10 years, which is good news. But also putting it into context, El Paso, if you divide our allocation, in other words, dividing the 1.3 billion divided by the 75 billion, you can see that our share is relatively small. 1.8 growing to 2%. It's not a ton of money compared to the rest of the state.
Eduardo.
Yes, sir.
Can you bring to the board at a future time in one of your reports the proportionality of funding received by the El Paso region as opposed to other MPOs?
Sure.
I think what the board's going to find is that we're disproportionately funded. The best example in terms of population is Fort Worth, and they're getting 3 times what we're getting on an annual basis.
All right. Then the bottom 4 rows, we wanted to focus on these because, again, these are the important ones, the relevant ones for us. Category 2, we pretty much stay the same. Funding projects that in the next 10 years. Category 5, this is important and very relevant. It's CMAQ. There's a significant reduction in CMAQ money, and this is due to the fact that the city, well, the MPO, San Antonio MPO region became non-attainment. So now there's one more non-attainment region that competes for funding for CMAQ, for Category 5. So the pie remains the same. Now it's sliced into smaller pieces. It could be one of the comments that we, well, it is one of the comments that we plan to submit in the fact that we would ask the commission to maybe supplement Category 5 so that at least, we remain the same. Again, San Antonio now is entitled to CMAQ, but we already have projects programmed under Category 5. So if this goes through without that additional or that supplemental, it means that we would have to delay some projects that are already programmed. Category 7, again, that's STP, one of the categories controlled here by the MPO. We pretty much remain the same. It's a little more money. But then again, on Category 12, I think that's really where the best news is. There's for this year, there's a significant amount. There's a couple of projects that have been identified by TxDOT in our region. One of them is about $193 million, which is the I-10 at Artcraft interchange. Again, this is in draft form, but I think overall it's very good news for us because that is additional funding.
What is the second project? You said there's two.
Right. The other one is an interchange at Penndale. Again, it's also along I-10. The idea for that one is to help relieve the Zaragoza interchange. So it's a way of redistributing traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, within the internal TxDOT process, that one scored very high, very well. But again, that's still where we still need to do a lot of work, how TxDOT evaluates and scores projects, but we also need to, provide a lot of input. So, I mean, it's good news. I think these projects fit, within our proposed mobility program. But it's one of the things that I also wanted to mention to you all, that, one of the next steps that the MPO will be developing is that mobility plan, because we really need to develop a comprehensive program, not that doesn't focus on one or two or three projects. It has to be a plan, a program where we use our existing funds in a smart way, and develop it, evaluate it, make sure that we select the best projects, prioritize them, and then go to the commission, go to the legislature, go anywhere we need to go to ask for funding. But it has to be a really well thought, with having a lot of thinking behind it. So that wanted to mention that it's going to be one of the first things that we're going to be tackling now. So with that, unless you have any questions, that's my report.
You said we're gonna send comments regarding the CMAQ funding. What are the chances that the commission will subsidize that? Or maybe that's a question for Mr. Trevino. I mean, are the other non-attainment areas also
yes.
lobbying for?
I'm sure that all the other non-attainment areas are going to be
Is there a
submitting
concerted
comments.
effort from the other?
Right.
I mean,
So you've got Dallas-Fort Worth, you've got Houston, Beaumont, and El Paso, and I think all of us are going to be asking for the same thing.
Can we submit letters as a board? I mean, I don't know if that amplifies the request any, but, is it possible that if the TPB authorizes a letter to be sent, not just only regarding the CMAQ funding, but also to the point Mr. Gonzalez brought up, that, if the funding seems disproportionate, I mean, can we, as a board, write a letter, from the organization, from the TPB?
I don't see why not. I mean, the MPO board, typically sends letters, passes resolution of support. Yeah, I don't think we can do it today, obviously, because it's not a posted item, but.
well, we won't be able to do it by the end of the comment period, though.
When's the end of the
Right.
comment period? It's August. I thought it was mid-August.
Yeah, our next meeting is end of August. That's
Okay.
an official action, we're out of time.
We'll see you, Judge.
Right. But individually, as, I guess, as a county commissioner, as a, you know, I don't think you need authorization from the MPO policy board.
Okay.
Is the posting broad enough on the executive report that he can be directed to send the letter on behalf of the MPO?
I don't think it is. It's not an action item.
Okay.
Is it brought, we're going with no action. That's kind of a policy thing. If we could include in that action item that things on the, in the executive director's report could be actionable. But that would have to be a secret. Just the way that would be a secret policy. So that we could make some sort of direct action from the report would be
That's a good idea.
would be beneficial to us.
I agree.
We'll discuss it. Okay. Any questions, comments before we adjourn? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn, is there a second? Motion is second. Those in favor?
Aye.